What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today, I'll be going over my 10 breakout candidates for the season. They're in no particular order. I'll be starting in the AFC East and then going all the way down to the NFC West. But before we get into that, we have some honorable mentions here. So, starting with Rashad Bateman, receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. He's really the only guy here that will be a consistent target threat for the Baltimore Ravens at receiver, as they don't have, the depth at receiver. They're going to be a lot of tight end formations, but I think Rashad Bateman will be able to have a 1,000-yard season, probably around 8 touchdowns, 65 catches, stuff like that. Missed some time during his rookie year. I think he'll have a solid season here. Nico Collins, same thing. He'll be that second receiver in Houston. Will be able to be that number 2 target share with some other guys out the door this season, and he will get a full opportunity to do so. Josh Palmer will be that third receiver there in Los Angeles. I think he'll have a really good year. I think he's going to be more of that Keenan Allen replacement when Keenan Allen goes on to retire, but for now, he'll be that possession receiver on the outside. Good route runner, too. I have Aaron Robinson from the Giants. He'll step in here, be their CB2. He's long, lengthy, press corner. I really liked him coming out of UCF in 2021. And he should have a better year this year. Was hurt also in his rookie year. Tommy Tremble with, they did give Ian Thomas a contract extension, but I think Tremble will be the starting tight end there in Carolina and will be a solid target there for Baker Mayfield. And then I have Paulson Adebo, the corner, second-year corner from the Saints. I just realized all those guys are year 2 guys. But now we move into the top 10 candidates here that I have. No particular order again. Starting with a guy from Buffalo, was taken in the first round last year in Greg Rousseau here. Had a really solid rookie season. Solid stats there, 50 tackles, 8 TFLs, 4 sacks. I think he did a lot more than was showed up in the box score. He was a very consistent run defender, was always edge setting, really powerful dude. Like, his speed to power, really shows. I think this year will take a step up as a pass rusher, as he was always really raw. He played his freshman year at Miami in 2019, redshirt freshman year, and then his redshirt sophomore year, he was, he didn't play because of the pandemic, but he would have gotten drafted off of his freshman year tape if he would have been able to come out. It's just, with the rules and stuff that they have in place, you have to wait 3 years till after high school. And he literally got drafted off that tape. So he was super raw prospect coming in, and he had a really good season last year. I think he will be able to build off that here, continue to be a really great run defender for this Bills team, one of the best they have. And hopefully he will be able to be a number 2 edge rusher along with Von Miller. I'm projecting him to be able to do that. For a season projection stat line, probably similar numbers in tackles, probably maybe uptick a little bit to 65, 70 range, probably 12 TFLs. I'm looking for 8 to 10 sacks. I think would be a really good year for Rousseau, and then of course getting the quarterback with some forced fumbles. And then we move on to my second breakout candidate here, going again in the first round of last year's draft. I have Odafe Oweh from the Baltimore Ravens here, and he was a guy that was thought to be more second, third round, unless if he went to a team that was very good of developing talent at the edge position, like the Baltimore Ravens, and of course he ended up there. Had a really impactful week 2 against the Chiefs where he forced a fumble on, I think it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to really help propel that comeback from the Ravens and give them the win. I think he's going to be their most productive edge rusher this season with a couple of guys out the door there. He had 33 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 5 sacks last season. I think his speed, his bend is one of the best in the game, really, at such a young age. He's a very athletic guy. Doesn't have a ton of power right now, and hopefully he can develop that, because I think bend can only get you so far. Look at somebody like Brian Burns. If he had some more power in his game, he'd be, top of the top, like, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Even TJ Watt has some power to him, even though he's more like speed or finesse. So I think Oweh will get there. Probably will be a double-digit sack guy for sure. I'd probably say 12 to 14 for Odafe Oweh this year. And then he's not a great run defender. It's just he's not built for it, really. But I think he will improve as a run defender this season. We go on to our third breakout candidate here. This is a name that a lot of people don't know. He was I think, either third or fourth round draft pick last year for the Las Vegas Raiders. It is linebacker Diablo. Dope-ass name, first of all. But second of all, he's one of these newer type linebackers that played safety at Virginia Tech, converted down to that will linebacker spot here in the NFL, and I think he's primed for a huge season. There's no one really here to take his spot besides, you got Denzel Perryman for those early downs, and then I think they'll play him over Jayon Brown. Personally, I'd rather be playing Diablo over Jayon Brown at this point, and he should be one of those, very good cover linebackers in the league. I think he will eventually become one of the best in the game, but I think he will take a big step up this year in coverage, be a tight end eraser, be a run and chase guy in the run game, contribute on that part there, but definitely should play more snaps this season and be a prime player on that defense, one that you're like, oh, hey, that's Diablo, and you will know him by the end of the year. He had a solid rookie year in limited amount of playing time. He had a bunch of guys in front of him like Corey Littleton, Denzel Perryman, like we talked about, is back here after, being one of those top guys in tackles for the season. So I do think that Diablo will get the opportunity this year to break out, and he was one of my favorite players from the 2021 draft. So look out for him. But we move into my number 4 breakout candidate here. He was probably the most productive guy from last season, having 144 tackles and 7 TFLs. It is Kazir White from the Los Angeles Chargers, and you're like, how can a guy with 144 tackles be, even better? I think he'll be a more recognizable name this year. I think he'll be an even better cover linebacker this year, which is his specialization. 2 picks last year, 2 forced fumbles. He's really all around the ball all the time. I think he'll have more ball production this year at the linebacker, be really good in matchups against, running backs who are good in the pass game and tight ends as well, and be a better run defender this year. I think he bulked up a little bit, so you will see more production there. As Kazir White was definitely the best linebacker for the LA Chargers last year, and I couldn't believe they let him walk, honestly, on such a cheap deal to go to Philly, which was a really good pickup by Philly that had needed linebacker depth and help, ever since that Super Bowl run. So I think he fits in really well here. He's a really nice compliment to TJ Edwards, who's more of that run defender, thumping middle linebacker, where you have a nice compliment to Kazir White, who's more of a run and chase guy in the run game, and then a very, very good pass cover guy. We move into my number 5 breakout candidate here. Had to give the O-line some love here. Josh Meyers, I somewhat shredded this pick when the Packers took him there in the late second round, because Creed Humphrey was still on the board, and he went to the next pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, but he still had a very good rookie season. I know I have the PFF grades up there, but I'm telling you, he did play better than that, and I think part of the reason why that grade is so low is because the 2 starting tackles for Green Bay missed pretty much the entire season. Bakhtiari did miss the entire season, and Elton Jenkins, I think, only played in like 6 games. So with a more cohesive offensive line this year, I think Josh Meyers will ascend, be probably a top 12 to 15 center in the league, and be a pivotal part of this Green Bay sort of newer team when, Aaron Rodgers moves on and they have a lot of these newer pieces. I think Josh Meyers will be part of that offensive line for years to come. But now let's move on to my number 6 breakout candidate here, a guy that I had slotted in for 2021 as well before he tore his ACL at the beginning of the season. Irv Smith Jr., the Vikings. This dude is an athletic freak. I mean, he's just massive, man. He's a very, very good blocker as well. Really solid receiver. I think his ability to, make plays after the catch will be prominent this season now that he gets an actual starting role, as in his rookie season and second year, which is the stats he had up there. He was behind Kyle Rudolph. They cut Kyle Rudolph in 2021 offseason, or 2020 offseason, heading into the 2021 season, fully prepared to give Irv Smith the starting tight end role. He tears his ACL in camp, and then Tyler Conklin takes over that role. I think Irv Smith Jr. probably should have around 70 catches, 900-something yards, probably 8 touchdowns, somewhere in there. and his yards per catch should be above 10.5 probably. I think that Irv Smith is super primed for a breakout season here, with Justin Jefferson being the first guy. Adam Thielen, you don't know about his health there, and then you have KJ Osborne. So I think Irv Smith really could be the second most targeted guy on this Vikings team. So if you are a fantasy football guy, this is a really good pickup here as well in the later rounds of your leagues. But we move on to my number 7 breakout candidate here, a guy that was someone who I really hyped up when he was drafted out of Georgia in the 3rd round. It is Lorenzo Carter of the Atlanta Falcons here, who had a pretty good season last year, probably at his best, most productive season, with 50 tackles, 6 TFLs, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 5 passes defensed. I think with no one really here threatening Lorenzo Carter, he's on a 1-year prove-it deal. I think that he really could be able to get in that more 8 to 10 sack range here with Arnold Ebiketie across from him. You have a young edge duo here in Atlanta that you hope can grow together and develop. Carter is only signed for 1 year, but I think with a career high in sacks, TFLs, tackles, he could be able to secure a long-term deal here in Atlanta, which I think he can do. He's got Grady Jarrett to help him out on the inside. Arnold Ebiketie, like we talked about, on the opposite side of him. So I think Lorenzo Carter should be able to get some nice production here in Atlanta. A guy that I've been waiting to break out. He's got all the physical tools. He just has to put it all together here. He's also struggled with injuries a little bit, so hoping he can stay healthy here with his new team in the Atlanta Falcons. But we move on to my number 8 breakout candidate here, a former first-round pick from last year in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. With Jason Pierre-Paul out the door here, it opens up Joe Tryon to get a more prevalent role in this offense. He will be the starting edge opposite of Shaquille Barrett. Joe Tryon has a really nice mix of speed to power. I think that was... He probably did that the best of the edge guys of the class last season. He's also a very, very good run defender. Was in a lot early downs for JPP, who's not as good of a run defender as him, so he will also be productive in that aspect of the game. In limited time, he had 29 tackles, 5 TFLs, 4 sacks, and 3 passes defensed. I think that he will be able to easily double those numbers this season, if not get into the double-digit sack range here for Joe Tryon, who had a really impressive rookie season for a guy that a lot of people weren't talking about as much in the draft process. He had a really, really nice season, and I expect him to continue that. And now for my number 9 breakout candidate, and this is my opinion, he's probably top 3 most underrated player in the NFL. Ernest Jones, linebacker for the Los Angeles Rams. He was the reason that Kenny Young got traded last year. Ernest Jones was an absolute beast, man. He was all over the field, really, really good run defender, has really good instincts in coverage, and those should only get better with time. He's got Bobby Wagner to pair with him now, so that's a really, really good linebacker duo. You got one of the best linebackers in the league for the last decade, and then you have one of the best up-and-coming rising linebackers in the league. Ernest Jones will be up there with those top-named young linebackers in due time. 2021, he had 61 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and 4 passes defense. And I think he only started like less than half the games last season. So as a full-time starter, you can expect those tackle numbers to almost double. TFL numbers should skyrocket. Interception numbers hopefully will be around the same with more ball production there. But Ernest Jones is a do-it-all linebacker. He can, cover. That's probably his best skill set there. He can play a little bit of like thumping middle linebacker, although I'd rather have him as more of a run and chase guy. But he can do some of that, so look out for Ernest Jones there from the Rams. And then my final breakout candidate here, the only quarterback on this list, and it is Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. I just think Trey Lance is going to ball out this year, man. I think the 49ers are going to be one of the most underrated teams in football this year. Might be my pick to win the NFC West. You'll have to check that out tomorrow, though. I think Trey Lance, he's one of the biggest wild cards coming into the season. We didn't see him a lot last year. They had some packages for him last year for Kyle Shanahan, and then he started 2 games, went 1-1 in those games with 603 yards, 5 TDs, and 2 picks. But I do think that Lance can have a very, very productive season here. He's got one of the best offensive minds in the game in Kyle Shanahan. He will be able to build an offense that suits Trey Lance. And he's got really good pieces around. He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, Elijah Mitchell. The list goes on and on. I think that Trey Lance is in the best position right now to have the best year 2 of the quarterbacks from last season. That includes Mac Jones, that includes Davis Mills, and the rest of the gang. I really do think that Trey Lance is poised for an opportunity to be a division winner and an NFC contender this season with the San Francisco 49ers. But that will conclude my breakout players list. Is there anybody that I didn't name that should be here? Let me know in the comment section below. But thank you for watching this video, everybody, and stay tuned tomorrow. I will have my full season predictions, standings, playoffs, Super Bowl winner, and award winners as well in that video. And then I will also have my week 1 game picks, both straight up and against the spread. So please stay tuned for that. But thank you for watching, everybody, and have a great day, and peace.